The mahogany doors of my corner office on the 52nd floor couldn't muffle the sound of my fists slamming against the desk. The divorce papers my wife's lawyers had just served me claimed she deserved $80 million in cash and controlling interest in Biopharma Solutions, the company I'd built from nothing over the past 15 years. Mr. Sullivan. My assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. The private investigator is here. Send him in, Sarah. I'd hired the best PI firm in Manhattan the moment things started feeling off. Not because I was naturally suspicious, but because you don't build a successful pharmaceutical company without developing a sixth sense for when something's wrong. Jack Thompson, a former FBI agent turned private investigator, walked in with a thick manila envelope. His face told me he found something big. You'd better sit down for this, Mr. Sullivan, he said, spreading photographs across my desk. The images showed my wife, Catherine, in Denver. But it wasn't the location that made my blood run cold. It was what she was doing. In one photo, she was kissing a man in front of a suburban home. In another, she was at a school playground with 3 children who couldn't have been more than 10 years old. Your wife has been living a double life, Jack explained. She's married to a real estate developer named Michael Preston. They have 3 kids together. The oldest is 9. I did the math quickly. We've been married for 12 years. That's impossible, I muttered. We would have found this during the background checks when she joined the company's board. Jack pulled out more documents. She used her maiden name in Colorado. Different social security number, different everything. Professional level identity management. Someone helped her set this up. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank statements, school records, property deeds. Catherine had built an entire parallel life while helping me grow Biopharma Solutions into a billion-dollar company. There's more, Jack continued. She's been systematically transferring company information to a private server for the past 3 years. We traced it to a competitor, Palmer Pharmaceuticals. Palmer, our biggest rival in the cancer drug research field. The same company that had mysteriously begun developing treatments suspiciously similar to our proprietary formulas. How deep does this go? I asked, though I already feared the answer. All the way. Your wife isn't just committing bigamy. She's been orchestrating corporate espionage on a massive scale. The Denver family, that's her cover. Her real partnership is with Palmer Pharmaceuticals. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out over Manhattan. 15 years of work, billions in research, thousands of employees depending on us. All put at risk by the woman I thought I knew. Get me everything, I instructed. Every document, every photo, every shred of evidence. And Jack, make it court ready. The next week was a blur of meetings with lawyers, security experts, and forensic accountants. We discovered that Catherine had been carefully positioning herself for this moment. She manipulated board members, created false paper trails suggesting she was instrumental in our major breakthroughs, and built a narrative of being the sacrificing wife who gave up her career to support mine. The preliminary divorce hearing was scheduled for Monday morning. Catherine's legal team had requested an emergency session, claiming I was trying to freeze her out of company decisions. I'd arrived at the courthouse early, watching as Catherine walked in with her high-powered legal team. She wore a conservative navy suit and played the role of the wronged wife perfectly. I had to admit, she was good. Her lawyer spoke first, painting a picture of a devoted wife who had given up everything to support her husband's dreams. He praised her crucial contributions to Biopharma's success, her sacrifice of her own career, her role in our breakthrough cancer treatments. I sat quietly, listening to the elaborate fiction they had constructed. When it was my turn, I simply placed 3 identical folders on the judge's bench. Your Honor, I said calmly, before we proceed, I believe you should review these documents. They tell a rather different story about my wife's activities over the past 12 years. The judge opened the folder. Catherine's composed expression flickered for the first time. Additionally, I continued, placing a USB drive on the bench. This contains surveillance footage, financial records, and school registration documents that prove my wife has been living a double life, complete with another husband and 3 children in Denver. The color drained from Catherine's face. Her lawyer quickly requested a recess, but the judge was already deep into the documents. Mrs. Sullivan, or should I say Mrs. Preston? The judge asked, his expression severe. Would you care to explain why you have 2 social security numbers and 2 marriage certificates? Catherine's lawyer tried to interject, but the judge silenced him with a look. I stood again. Your Honor, this isn't just about bigamy. The evidence shows my wife has been selling Biopharma's research to our competitors. The FBI's Corporate Fraud Division has already opened an investigation. What followed was 2 hours of legal chaos. Catherine's lawyers tried to suppress the evidence, claiming illegal surveillance, but everything had been obtained legally. The judge ordered an immediate freeze on all assets and demanded Catherine surrender her passports, both of them. As we left the courthouse, Catherine grabbed my arm. David, she said, using my first name for the first time in months, you don't understand. This isn't what it looks like. I gently removed her hand. Really? Because it looks like you've been living 2 lives, stealing my company's research and planning to take everything I've built. Palmer Pharmaceuticals offered me a deal, she hissed. We could have merged the companies. Your research, their distribution network, we could have dominated the market. And what about your other husband? Your children? Was that part of the merger deal too? She flinched. That was complicated. I needed a cover story for my time in Denver. Michael and the kids, they were convenient. Her cold calculation shocked me more than the betrayal. Convenient? You married another man and helped raise his children as a cover story. Everything I did was for us, for the bigger picture. I shook my head. No, Catherine. Everything you did was for yourself. The sad thing is, you're so good at lying that you've started believing your own stories. Back at the office, I called an emergency board meeting. It was time for complete transparency. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, we have a situation. Our head of research development has been selling our proprietary formulas to Palmer Pharmaceuticals. But we caught it, we have proof, and we're already implementing new security protocols. The board members listened in stunned silence as I outlined our response plan. New research security measures, enhanced background checks, and a complete overhaul of our data protection systems. This attempt to compromise our company has failed, I concluded, but it's made us stronger. Sometimes we need to be reminded that our greatest assets aren't our patents or our products. They're our integrity and our people. That evening, as I worked late in my office, Jack brought me a final report. Sir, we finished the financial audit. You need to see this. The documents showed a complex web of offshore accounts linking Catherine to not just Palmer Pharmaceuticals, but 3 other competitors. She hadn't just been selling our current research. She'd been auctioning off our future developments to the highest bidders. I called the FBI agent handling the case. How soon can you move on Palmer? We're ready now. Just waiting for the warrant to clear. Within days, the story exploded in the media. Pharma Wife's double life exposed ran across every business news channel. Palmer Pharmaceuticals stock crashed as federal agents raided their offices. Through it all, I kept thinking about trust and how easily it can blind us. Catherine had played her role perfectly, the supportive wife, the dedicated board member, the charming socialite. She had created such a flawless facade that no one thought to look behind it. A week later, I received a letter from Catherine's lawyer. She was willing to drop all claims to Biopharma in exchange for immunity from prosecution. I forwarded it to the FBI without response. That night, standing in my office overlooking the city, I thought about the past 12 years. I'd lost a wife, but saved my company. I'd been betrayed, but emerged stronger. And somehow, through it all, I'd discovered what really mattered. Not the money or the success, but the integrity with which we conduct our lives. Sarah knocked on my door. Sir, the new security protocols are in place. Every research project is now compartmentalized. No one person can access everything anymore. I nodded. Thank you, Sarah. Not just for this, but for standing by the company through all of this. She smiled. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best improvements. Looking at my computer screen, I saw our stock had stabilized. More importantly, I saw an email from our research team. They'd just had a breakthrough in our cancer treatment program, using the new secure development protocols we'd implemented after Catherine's betrayal. Sometimes I realized you have to lose everything to understand what you really have. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building something so strong that no betrayal can ever break it again. The media circus that followed was unlike anything I'd experienced in 15 years of running biopharma. Pharma Queen's double life dominated headlines for weeks. Ken ran an hour-long special titled Love, Lies, and Laboratory Secrets. But amid the sensational coverage, something unexpected happened. Our company's reputation actually improved. You caught internal espionage, protected your research, and maintained total transparency throughout the crisis. One major investor told me, that's exactly the kind of leadership the pharmaceutical industry needs. 6 weeks after the courthouse revelation, I sat in a federal prosecutor's office, reviewing the expanding case against Catherine and her conspirators. The scope of her deception was still unfolding. Mr. Sullivan, us. Attorney Martinez began, we've uncovered evidence that your wife's scheme goes back further than we thought. She was approached by Palmer Pharmaceuticals before your marriage. I felt the floor shift beneath me. Before. She was placed in your orbit deliberately. Palmer's CEO had identified your early research as groundbreaking. They couldn't buy you out, so they tried a different approach. Martinez pulled out an old photograph. It showed Catherine at a pharmaceutical conference in Boston, 2 years before I met her. She was sitting with Palmer's CEO and several other executives, all of whom were now under indictment. They played the long game, Martinez continued. First the marriage, then the gradual integration into your company, and finally the attempt to take control through divorce. It was all planned. I stared at the photograph, remembering how we'd met. A supposedly chance encounter at a charity gala. How she'd seemed so interested in my work, so supportive of my dreams. It had all been orchestrated. What about her other husband? I asked. How does he fit into this? Michael Preston was another mark. She used his real estate connections to launder money from the research sales. He had no idea about her true identity or her connection to Palmer. He thought she was a part-time pharmaceutical consultant named Catherine Bennett. The methodical nature of her deception was staggering. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd built an entire false world and maintained it for over a decade. Back at Biopharma, I called a company-wide meeting. Our employees deserved to know the full truth. Many of you have seen the news, I began, addressing the packed auditorium. The betrayal we uncovered goes deeper than anyone imagined. But here's what matters. We caught it, we stopped it, and we're using this experience to revolutionize how pharmaceutical research is protected. I unveiled our new research security protocol, a blockchain-based system that tracked every aspect of drug development, making it impossible to steal research without leaving a digital trail. We're not just developing life-saving drugs anymore, I explained. We're creating a new standard for research security in the pharmaceutical industry. The response from our team was incredible. Instead of demoralization, I saw determination. This crisis had united us in ways I never expected. That evening, Dr. Sarah Chen, our head of oncology research, asked to see me. She'd been with Biopharma since the early days, when we were working out of a small lab in New Jersey. "David," she said, closing my office door, "there's something you should know. 5 years ago, Catherine approached me about joining a special research initiative with Palmer. When I refused, she had me relegated to secondary projects." Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. I'd always wondered why Sarah, one of our brightest researchers, had seemed to step back from leading projects. "Why didn't you come to me?" I tried, but any complaints about Catherine were mysteriously lost in the system. She had people in HR and legal. She'd built quite a network. The next month revealed the full extent of that network. Our internal investigation uncovered dozens of employees who had been either compromised or sidelined by Catherine's machinations. Some had been bribed, others threatened, many simply manipulated with false information. Then came the breakthrough. Our IT team found a hidden server containing years of encrypted communications between Catherine and Palmer Pharmaceuticals. The messages revealed not just corporate espionage, but a detailed plan to undermine Biopharma's research credibility if the takeover failed. They were going to claim our cancer drug trials were falsified. Our head of it explained, showing me the files. They had forged documents ready to go, fake patient data, everything. I felt a cold anger I'd never experienced before. This wasn't just about money or power. They had been willing to destroy hope for cancer patients just to eliminate competition. I called an emergency board meeting. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "we're not just fighting corporate espionage. We're fighting something much worse, an attempt to undermine the very integrity of pharmaceutical research. Here's what we're going to do about it." I outlined a radical plan, complete transparency in our research process. We would create a public platform where anyone could track the progress of our drug trials, verify our methodologies, and see real-time results. "Won't this give our competitors an advantage?" one board member asked. "No," I replied firmly. "It will force them to compete on merit, not manipulation. And it will show the world that Biopharma stands for something more than profits." The initiative, which we called Clear Science, launched 2 months later. The pharmaceutical industry was stunned. No major drug company had ever voluntarily opened its research process to public scrutiny. The impact was immediate. Our stock initially dropped as investors worried about competitive disadvantage. But then something remarkable happened. Other companies began following our lead. The industry was transforming, and Biopharma was leading the way. In the midst of this transformation, I received a letter from Michael Preston, Catherine's other husband. "Mr. Sullivan, I don't know if you'll read this, but I need you to know that I was as deceived as you were. The children ask about their mother every day. I don't know how to tell them that the woman they loved was living a lie. Michael." I wrote back to him. Whatever our strange connection through Catherine's deception, we were both victims of her elaborate fraud. We met for coffee in Denver, 2 men trying to make sense of how one woman had orchestrated such profound betrayal. "She was different with us," Michael said, showing me family photos. "With you, she was the sophisticated executive. With us, she was the devoted mom who consulted part-time to help with the bills. She became whatever each situation required." Looking at those photos, Catherine at birthday parties, school plays, family vacations, I realized something important. The greatest lies aren't those we tell others, but those we tell ourselves. Catherine had convinced herself that her deceptions were justified by some greater purpose. Back in New York, the federal case against Catherine and Palmer Pharmaceuticals was building. The evidence we'd uncovered had led to investigations of 3 other major pharmaceutical companies. The industry was facing a reckoning. In my office, late one night, I found myself looking at an old photo from our wedding day. Catherine was beaming at the camera, looking every bit the happy bride. I wondered if any of it had been real. Sarah knocked on my door. "The first results from our transparent trials are in. The cancer drug, it's showing better results than we hoped." I smiled. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best outcomes. She nodded. You know, when this all started, everyone thought biopharma was finished. Instead, we've changed the entire industry. Looking out at the city lights, I thought about trust, betrayal, and redemption. Catherine had tried to destroy everything I'd built, but in doing so, she'd forced us to build something better. A company that didn't just develop drugs, but developed trust. The betrayal that could have ended us had instead defined us. We had created something that would help millions of people, not despite the betrayal, but because of how we chose to respond to it. 2 years after exposing Catherine's double life, I stood at the podium of the World Pharmaceutical Congress in Geneva. Biopharma had just been awarded the Industry Innovation Award, not for our drugs, but for our Clear Science initiative. Transparency isn't just about accountability, I told the assembled industry leaders. It's about restoring faith in an industry that holds millions of lives in its hands. When we expose our work to scrutiny, we don't become vulnerable, we become stronger. The irony wasn't lost on me. Catherine's betrayal, intended to destroy us, had instead sparked a revolution in pharmaceutical research transparency. Our stock had quadrupled, and more importantly, our cancer treatment trials were showing unprecedented success rates. After the speech, a young researcher approached me. Mr. Sullivan, how do you verify trust in your organization now? We don't verify trust, I replied. We make it unnecessary. Complete transparency means no one needs to trust us. They can see everything for themselves. Back in my hotel room, I received an urgent call from Martinez, the federal prosecutor. David, we need you back in New York. Catherine's talking. I was on the next flight. In the federal building's interview room, Catherine looked different, thinner, harder, but somehow more real than I had ever seen her. I want to make a deal, she said without preamble. There's more to this than Palmer Pharmaceuticals. Much more. Martinez nodded for her to continue. It's called the Phoenix Protocol. 5 major pharmaceutical companies working together to control drug development. They identify promising research, target the companies, then either buy them out or destroy them. I was just one operative among many. I leaned forward. Why tell us this now? Because what you're doing with Clear Science, it's destroying their whole system. They're planning something desperate. I may be a lot of things, but I won't be part of what they're planning. Which is? She looked directly at me for the first time. They're going to release compromised versions of major drugs, create a healthcare crisis, use it to discredit transparent research protocols, push for more industry self-regulation. The implications were staggering. Millions of lives could be at risk. We need proof, Martinez said. I have it. All of it. Every meeting, every plan, every player. I didn't trust them any more than they trusted me. Over the next week, federal agents moved on pharmaceutical companies across 3 continents. The Phoenix Protocol was exposed, its architects arrested. The industry was in chaos, but it was a necessary chaos, a cleansing fire. At Biopharma, we implemented unprecedented security measures. Not to hide our research, but to protect its integrity. Every step of our development process was recorded on an immutable blockchain, visible to anyone who wanted to verify our work. Then came the message we had been waiting for. Our cancer treatment had passed final trials. The results were beyond our most optimistic projections. Within months, we could begin saving lives. I called an all-hands meeting. Today, we've achieved something remarkable, I told our team. Not just a breakthrough in cancer treatment, but a breakthrough in how that treatment was developed. Every step, every test, every result has been open to public scrutiny. This isn't just our achievement. It belongs to everyone who believed in transparency. After the meeting, Sarah found me in my office. There's something you should see. She pulled up a video on her tablet. It showed Catherine being interviewed in prison by a documentary crew. I thought I was smarter than everyone, she was saying. I could play both sides, manipulate the system. But David, he did something I never expected. He made the system itself transparent. You can't manipulate what everyone can see. I turned off the video. Send that to our training department. It's a perfect example of why we do things the way we do now. The pharmaceutical industry was changing rapidly. Other companies were adopting our transparency protocols. The old guard was being replaced by a new generation of leaders committed to open science. One morning, I found a letter on my desk from Michael Preston. David, the kids are doing better. We've told them the truth as much as they can understand. Your example of turning betrayal into something positive has helped us all heal. Thank you for showing us that the best response to deception is radical honesty. Michael. I wrote back, inviting him and the children to visit Biopharma. They needed to see that their mother's actions, though destructive, had ultimately led to something good. During their visit, Michael's oldest daughter asked me a question that stopped me in my tracks. Did you hate our mom when you found out? I knelt down to her level. No, sweetie. I was angry and hurt, but hate only destroys the person feeling it. Instead, I tried to build something better. That evening, looking out over the city from my office, I reflected on how far we'd come. Biopharma wasn't just a pharmaceutical company anymore. It was a blueprint for a new way of doing business. The next day, we announced our most ambitious project yet, a global research collaboration platform. Any pharmaceutical company could join, provided they committed to complete transparency. The platform would allow researchers worldwide to work together, share discoveries, and accelerate the development of life-saving treatments. Catherine's betrayal had taught us that secrets are vulnerable to exploitation. But by eliminating secrets entirely, we had created something invulnerable, a system based on radical transparency and collaboration. As I prepared to present this initiative to the board, I found myself thinking about trust again. Not the blind trust that Catherine had exploited, but the earned trust that comes from consistent transparency and verified actions. The future of pharmaceutical research isn't in protecting secrets, I told the board. It's in sharing knowledge. When we all work in the light, we all move forward faster. The vote was unanimous. Biopharma would lead this new coalition, not as controllers, but as facilitators of a new era in medical research. Later that night, Sarah brought me the latest trial results from our cancer treatment. Patient after patient showing remarkable improvement. Lives being saved because we had chosen to respond to betrayal with openness rather than fear. You know what's ironic? Sarah said, Catherine thought she was going to destroy your legacy. Instead, she helped create one that will save millions of lives. I smiled, thinking of all the twists and turns that had brought us here. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best innovations. We just have to be brave enough to learn the right lessons. Looking at the city lights, I thought about trust, transparency, and transformation. Catherine had tried to take everything from me, but in doing so, she had helped create something far bigger than either of us. A new way forward for an entire industry. 5 years after Catherine's arrest, I stood in a hospital ward watching the young girl ring the remission bell. Our cancer treatment, developed under the transparent protocols born from betrayal, had saved her life, along with thousands of others. The pharmaceutical industry had transformed. The Phoenix Protocol conspiracy had led to sweeping reforms, with transparency becoming the new standard. Biopharma's model was now being taught in business schools as a case study in turning crisis into innovation. Mr. Sullivan. A nurse approached with a letter. A patient in the long-term care ward asked me to give this to you. The return address made my heart stop. It was from Catherine. Asterisk David, I'm dying. The irony isn't lost on me that it's cancer, the very disease you've helped create treatments for. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to understand something. Watching what you built from the ashes of my betrayal has been my greatest punishment. Not the prison sentence, not the public shame, but seeing how you transformed an industry I tried to corrupt into something genuinely noble. The children visit sometimes. They're old enough now to understand what I did, but still young enough to forgive. Michael has remarried. She's good for them. I'm not asking to see you. I just wanted you to know that your response to what I did taught me more than any punishment could. Catherine Asterisk. I sat in my office that evening, contemplating her words. Sarah found me there, staring at the letter. Are you going to see her? She asked. No, I replied. Some chapters need to stay closed. But I am going to do something else. The next day, I called a board meeting to propose the Kathryn Sullivan Memorial Research Grant, a fund to support transparent cancer research worldwide. Why name it after her? One board member asked. Because every story of transformation needs a catalyst, I explained. Her betrayal forced us to build something better. That's worth remembering. The grant launched 6 months later. Kathryn didn't live to see it, but her children attended the ceremony. Her oldest daughter, now a teenager, asked to speak. My mother made terrible choices, she said, her voice steady. But Mr. Sullivan showed me that how we respond to betrayal defines us more than the betrayal itself. This grant will help save lives. That's a legacy worth having. Biopharma continued to grow, not just as a company, but as a movement. Our transparent research platform had expanded to include hundreds of institutions worldwide. Breakthroughs that once took decades were happening in years. One evening, while cleaning out my office for renovation, I came across the burner phone that had started it all. It seemed almost primitive now, this tool of deception that had inadvertently launched a revolution in pharmaceutical transparency. Martinez, now FBI director, called occasionally to update me on the lasting impact of the Phoenix Protocol case. You know what's remarkable? He said during one call. Not a single major pharmaceutical scandal since the transparency protocols went into effect. Sunlight really is the best disinfectant. Michael and his family eventually moved to New York. His new wife was a researcher at Biopharma, life's little ironies. The children visited the office sometimes, curious about the company that had become part of their complicated family story. Looking back, I realized Kathryn's betrayal had taught me something profound. True strength doesn't come from protecting secrets, but from having nothing to hide. In trying to destroy what I had built, she had forced me to create something far more valuable. A legacy of transparency that was changing lives around the world. The pharmaceutical industry would never be the same, and neither would I. We had learned that the best way to prevent betrayal is to create systems where betrayal becomes pointless, where transparency makes deception impossible. As I watched the sun set over Manhattan from my office window, I thought about trust, betrayal, and redemption. Kathryn had tried to take everything from me, but in doing so, she had given me, and the world, something far more valuable. A new way forward, built on the foundation of radical honesty and transparent science. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead us to our greatest achievements. We just have to be brave enough to learn the right lessons and strong enough to build something better from the ashes of what we've lost.